Stay behind me. No one will hurt you now.
The market was alive with noise. Strange creatures shouted and bargained. Some had scales, some had fur, and others seemed like moving shadows. Stalls were crowded with glowing fruits, sharp tools, and gadgets that hummed in colors no human eye had seen before. Among the chaos, a small fountain bubbled quietly, its water reflecting the neon lights above. Beside the fountain, chained to a rusty post, sat a little alien girl. Her skin was pale blue, almost glowing under the market lights, and her large golden eyes watched the crowd nervously. She was small, thin, and dirty. Her clothes were torn and stained. Most people passed her by without even a glance. Some muttered waste product or useless child as they walked. The words were cruel, but she kept her eyes on the water, trying to hide the fear and hope she still carried. She had been chained here for weeks. Every day, traders came to look at her. Some poked her with their fingers. Others whispered about selling her to the highest bidder. She didn't understand everything they said, but she knew she was not safe. She had learned to stay quiet, to make herself small, to avoid the sharp eyes that judged her like an object, not a living being. From the shadows of the crowded market, a human watched her. He was tall, with dark hair and eyes that seemed calm, even in the chaos. He did not belong here, not really. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy. Most aliens ignored them, some even feared them. But he did not fear. Instead, he felt something deep and quiet pull him toward the girl. Something in her eyes, a spark of intelligence, even hope, told him she was not just another broken thing to be left behind. He stepped closer, careful not to draw attention. Market guards, alien creatures with 4 arms and sharp claws, moved past him. They were focused on their own business, so the human could watch the girl freely. She looked up as he came near. For a moment, their eyes met. There was a connection, small but real, like 2 stars recognizing each other in a dark sky. The girl tilted her head, curious but scared. She did not speak, only gestured toward the chains that bound her wrists. The human knelt slowly, showing he meant no harm. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small piece of fruit, glowing faintly in his hand. He held it out. She hesitated. For a moment, he thought she might refuse. Then, slowly she took it, her fingers brushing his. The touch was brief, but it made something warm stir in his chest. The crowd moved around them, loud and chaotic, but between the two, there was silence. The human whispered, "It's okay. You're not alone." The girl's eyes widened. She had heard kindness in a place where there was almost none. Then something happened that made the human's heart stop. She whispered a word in her strange language, soft and trembling. He did not understand it, but it felt urgent, important. She looked at him, her eyes shining with fear and hope. Something told him she was asking for help, real help, not just food or water. Suddenly, one of the market guards glanced in his direction. His sharp eyes narrowed. The human froze, hiding the fruit behind his back. The guard barked a question in a language the human barely understood, asking why he was near the girl. Panic brushed the human's mind. He had to act carefully. One wrong move, and the girl could be sold, or worse. The girl noticed the tension. Her small hand tugged at her chains, the metal clinking softly. She seemed to be asking him, "Please, do something." The human's mind raced. Could he free her now? Should he wait? Every second felt heavy, like the air itself was pressing down on them. And then the human made a decision. He would not let fear stop him. He would not let her remain chained beside the fountain. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this was the moment that could change everything for both of them. The human took a slow step forward. The girl's golden eyes lit up, as if she sensed his choice. The crowd continued its endless noise, unaware that a quiet battle of courage and hope was beginning beside the bubbling fountain. The chains rattled softly. The future was uncertain. But one thing was clear, the girl was no longer invisible. And the human. He could not turn away. The human stayed near the fountain, careful not to draw the guard's attention. He watched the little alien girl closely. Her chains rattled softly every time she shifted. She was small, but her movements were quick, like a frightened animal ready to run. Yet, there was something different in her. Something beyond fear, an intelligence and awareness that made the human's heart tighten. He reached into his bag again, pulling out a small water container. The liquid shimmered faintly, glowing under the market lights. He held it toward her, speaking softly. "Here. Drink." The girl hesitated. Her eyes darted to the guards patrolling the crowd. Slowly, she leaned forward, cupped her hands, and sipped the water. She grimaced at the taste but drank all of it. For the first time, the human noticed a small scar across her cheek. It was old, healed but visible. He realized the girl had been hurt before hurt, that left marks deeper than the skin. He wished he could speak words that would heal more than just thirst. But for now, small kindnesses were all he could give. The girl tried to speak but only managed a few sounds, broken and uncertain. The human listened carefully. He had learned a few alien words before coming to this market, enough to understand basic meanings. "Safe," he said slowly. She blinked. He repeated, "Safe." Her golden eyes softened. She tilted her head and pointed toward the fountain. Then, very quietly, she whispered again in her own language. The human did not understand the words, but her tone carried urgency. Something was wrong beyond the chains, beyond the guards. Something he could not see yet. A shadow passed over them. One of the 4 armed guards stopped and stared. His gaze was sharp, calculating. "Why are you here?" The guard demanded, his voice low but threatening. The human froze. He could not answer without drawing attention, but he also could not leave the girl alone. He looked at her, and their eyes met. She seemed to say without words, "Help me, please." The human nodded slightly. He could not speak too loudly, but he had made his choice. He would not abandon her. Not here, not now. He reached down and gently touched her hand. The metal chains were cold under his fingers. The girl flinched but did not pull away. Instead, she stared at him, her golden eyes wide with a mixture of fear and trust. This was the moment when understanding began not through words, but through simple gestures, simple kindness, and quiet courage. The market continued its chaos around them. Aliens haggled loudly, some bumped into them, some ignored them entirely. But in the small space beside the fountain, a quiet bond was forming. The human offered her another piece of glowing fruit. She looked at it, then at him, then hesitated. He smiled gently and motioned for her to take it. Slowly, carefully she accepted. For the first time, the girl moved with a small measure of hope. She whispered again, a little louder this time. The human leaned closer, trying to understand. Though he could not translate the words, the urgency and fear were clear. Someone was coming. Someone who wanted to take her away. Suddenly, the guard's attention shifted. His claws tapped against the metal railing as he stared directly at them. The human froze, hiding the fruit behind his back. He felt the tension of the market like a weight pressing down on his shoulders. If the guard approached, the girl would be in immediate danger. But the girl was not helpless. She tilted her head and pointed toward a small archway behind the fountain. A secret path, perhaps. Her golden eyes seemed to plead with him. "Follow me, trust me." The human nodded. Slowly, carefully, he prepared to move. The guards were still watching, but there was a small window, a moment when they might not notice. He had no plan, yet only a determination to not leave her chained like a waste product. As they prepared to take their first step, the girl whispered once more in her strange language. This time, he felt it in his chest, a warning, a promise, and a plea all at once. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. "Help me." Trust me, now." With that, they began moving toward the archway, hearts pounding, eyes alert. The market around them roared with life, unaware that a quiet act of courage was beginning, an act that would change both their lives forever. The chains clinked softly behind her, a reminder of the danger they faced. But for the first time, the alien girl did not look completely alone. And the human. He had chosen a path he could never turn back from. The archway led to a narrow alley behind the market. The human and the alien girl moved quickly but quietly, careful not to make any noise. The girl's chains rattled softly with every step. She held her small hands close to her chest, glancing over her shoulder every few seconds. The market above was loud, chaotic, full of strange smells and bright lights. But here in the shadows, it was different, darker, dangerous. The human studied the alley carefully. He could see signs of danger everywhere. Broken crates lined the walls, and the shadows moved strangely. Sometimes, small alien creatures peeked from corners, their eyes glowing in the dim light. He did not panic. He only kept moving, focused on keeping the girl safe. The girl whispered something in her language. He shook his head slightly. He could not understand, but her tone was urgent. Then she pointed toward a pile of crates. Hidden behind them was a small ladder, leading to a narrow passage above the alley. It was risky, but it might be the only way out. The human nodded. He helped her climb first, then followed. The passage opened to a small rooftop. From there, they could see the market from above. The guards were still patrolling, moving in patterns that suggested they were looking for someone. The human realized they were searching for the girl. The urgency in her whispers made sense now. They needed to move fast. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from below. One of the market stalls had collapsed, scattering goods everywhere. The guards stopped and looked up. The human froze, hoping they had not noticed him and the girl. The little alien gripped his arm tightly. Her golden eyes were wide with fear. "Don't worry," he whispered. "We will get out." They continued along the rooftops, careful to stay in the shadows. Every step was dangerous. The buildings were old and unstable. A wrong move could send them falling into the market below. The girl looked at him with a mixture of trust and determination. Even in chains, she seemed brave. She was small, but her spirit was strong. The human noticed something strange. Some of the market guards were not ordinary enforcers, they were bounty hunters. Their armor was dark, and their weapons glinted with sharp energy blades. They were searching not just for the girl, but for anyone who might help her escape. The human felt a chill. The danger was greater than he had imagined. The girl whispered again, pointing toward a small opening in the building ahead. It looked like an old storage room. "There," she said in broken common words. The human nodded. Together, they moved quickly, slipping inside before anyone could notice. The storage room was dark, filled with crates and barrels. The girl's chains clinked as she moved to a corner. The human knelt beside her, checking the chains. They were old and rusty, but strong. He needed a tool to break them. He looked around, spotting a heavy metal rod among the crates. It would take strength, but it might work. Suddenly, footsteps echoed outside the door. The human froze. The girl pressed herself against him, whispering in her alien language. The human could feel her fear, but also her courage. She trusted him to protect her. He nodded silently and held the metal rod tightly, ready for whatever came through the door. The door creaked open slowly. A tall guard stepped inside, scanning the room. His glowing eyes swept the shadows. The human held his breath. The girl's hand gripped his arm tightly. The guard paused, sensing something was off. He took a step closer. Then, without warning, the girl whispered a strange word in her language. A small, invisible pulse of energy shot from her hands, causing a crate to fall noisily across the room. The guard's attention was drawn to the sound. He cursed and ran toward the noise, giving the human and the girl a precious few seconds. "Go," the human whispered. He grabbed the girl's hand, leading her to another small door at the back of the storage room. Together, they slipped through, moving deeper into the maze of alleys and tunnels beneath the market. For the first time, the girl smiled a small, frightened, but genuine smile. She had survived another close encounter, and she trusted the human who had chosen to help her. But the danger was far from over. The market was alive with enemies, and the paths ahead were unknown. Every step they took could be their last if they were not careful. The human looked down at her golden eyes. "We're not safe yet," he said softly. "But we will find a way." The girl nodded, holding on to hope as tightly as she held his hand. Together, they vanished into the shadows, moving through the dangerous heart of the market, where every corner hid threats, and every sound could betray them. The tunnels beneath the market were dark and damp. The air smelled of rust and wet stone. The human led the little alien girl carefully, holding her small hand in his. Her chains still rattled, a constant reminder of the danger that followed them. But for the first time in days, she felt a flicker of hope. The tunnel twisted and turned like a maze. Shadows danced on the walls as they moved, and every sound echoed loudly. The girl whispered in her alien language, pointing ahead. The human nodded, following her instinct. She seemed to know these tunnels well, as if she had been here before, or perhaps she had seen them in memory or dream. They stopped for a moment in a wide chamber. Broken pipes leaked water onto the floor. Rusted crates and discarded tools were scattered around. The human looked at the girl. "This place looks dangerous," he said softly. She nodded, her golden eyes shining. She pointed toward a small grate at the far end of the room. "It's tight," she said in broken words. "But safe." The human studied it. The grate led to a narrow vertical shaft. It would be difficult to climb, especially with the girl chained. He frowned. They needed a plan. He looked around the chamber and found some long metal rods. He could use them to lift the chains carefully or help her climb. Suddenly, a loud metallic noise echoed from the tunnel behind them. Someone or something was coming. The girl froze. Her small body trembled. She whispered urgently, pulling on his sleeve. The human felt the pulse of fear in her voice, but also determination. She wanted to escape. She wanted freedom. They moved quickly. The human lifted the chains carefully, making sure they didn't get caught on the jagged edges of the grate. The girl climbed first, slowly, with the human guiding her. Her golden eyes were fixed on him, trusting him completely. She slipped through the opening, disappearing into the narrow shaft. The human followed. The tunnel was dark and cramped. He had to squeeze carefully to avoid scraping himself on the walls. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. The bounty hunters were not far away. Every step was a risk, every moment a test of courage. Halfway through the shaft, the girl whispered again. Her voice was urgent. The human paused, straining to listen. She pointed upward. "Shortcut." "Faster," she said. He nodded, understanding. The tunnel branched into a smaller passage, barely wide enough for them to crawl. It would be dangerous, but it might let them escape the pursuers. They crawled carefully, inch by inch. The walls were rough, scraping their clothes and skin. The girl stumbled once, but the human caught her. "Careful," he whispered. She nodded, breathing hard, but determined to keep moving. Finally, they reached a small ladder leading upward. The human helped the girl climb first. She reached the top and disappeared through a grate into a quiet alley above the market. He followed, careful to keep his movement silent. The alley was empty, save for broken crates and discarded trash. The girl's chains were still attached, but they were old and rusty. The human studied them. If he could break them, she would finally be free. He looked around, spotting a loose metal rod on the ground. It would take strength, but it might work. He struck the chains carefully. The metal resisted at first, but then snap. They broke. The girl's eyes widened. She touched her wrists, feeling freedom for the first time. Tears glistened in her golden eyes, but she smiled. "Free," she whispered. The human smiled back. Yes, free. But their relief was brief. The sounds of pursuit were still close. The market above might seem quiet, but bounty hunters could appear at any moment. They needed to move, to find safety, to escape the dangerous heart of the market completely. The girl grabbed his hand. Together, they ran down the alley, blending with shadows, moving through side streets and hidden paths. Every step was tense, every corner a potential trap. But for the first time, they were not just surviving, they were planning their escape. The human looked at her golden eyes. "We will find a safe place," he said. She nodded, trusting him completely. They were two beings from different worlds, bound by courage and hope. And in the shadows of the market, a dangerous escape plan was beginning to take shape, one that would test them both in ways they could not yet imagine. The city around them was alive, full of noise and danger, but for the first time, they felt a glimmer of control. The chase was far from over, but they were moving together, toward freedom. The human and the alien girl ran through the narrow alleys, their footsteps echoing softly against the stone walls. The market above was noisy, but down here, in the shadows, danger felt closer, sharper. They could hear distant shouts, the clatter of running guards, and the occasional hiss of strange weapons. Every sound reminded them that their pursuers were close. The girl's chains had been broken, but the exhaustion in her small body was visible. She stumbled once, and the human caught her just in time. Her golden eyes, wide and fearful, met his. "We can't stop," he whispered. She nodded, determination replacing fear. As they turned a corner, a group of bounty hunters appeared, blocking their path. Their armor glowed faintly in the dim light, and long, sharp weapons rested in their hands. The human froze. There were too many of them, and they were cornered. Every instinct screamed to retreat, but the girl looked at him calmly. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Wait," she whispered in her alien language. The human tilted his head, unsure what she meant. Then, slowly, something incredible happened. A faint glow surrounded her hands. The air shimmered. Objects around her, small rocks, pieces of broken metal, began to move, hovering and spinning in the air. The human's eyes widened. The girl was not helpless. She had power, real power. The bounty hunters raised their weapons, confused and cautious. The girl's golden eyes glowed brighter. She whispered another word, and the floating objects formed a barrier around her and the human. The air crackled with energy. A small rock shot forward, knocking a weapon from a hunter's hand. Another spun toward a wall, creating a loud crash that echoed through the alley. The human stared in amazement. She had never spoken of this power before. He had not even suspected it. And yet, here it was, raw, untrained, but strong enough to protect them both. The hunters hesitated, unsure how to approach. The girl's hands moved with confidence now, guiding the objects like a conductor leading an orchestra. She whispered another command, and the metal rods and stones formed a spinning shield. The hunters tried to push forward, but the invisible force kept them back. The human realized that the girl's power was more than just defense. It could give them a chance to escape. He whispered, "Good, now go." She nodded, understanding him perfectly. They ran along the alley, the floating debris shielding them from attacks. As they reached a wider street, the girl's glow faded slightly, her energy spent from the effort. The human helped her catch her breath. "That was amazing," he said. She shook her head, exhausted but smiling faintly. "Didn't "Want to hurt," she said in broken words. "Only escape." The human nodded. "I know, and it worked." For the first time, he saw her not as a helpless child, but as someone strong, brave, and capable. She had survived being treated as a waste product and had now shown a power that few could imagine. Her intelligence, courage, and abilities made her more than just a victim. She was a force, but the danger was far from over. The market's bounty hunters would not give up easily. They would return, stronger and more prepared. The human knew they needed to find safety, a place where she could rest and train, and where the hunters could not reach them. The girl looked at him, her golden eyes filled with quiet determination. "Safe soon?" she asked. "Yes," he said firmly. "We will find a safe place. I promise." They moved on, weaving through backstreets and hidden alleys. Every step was careful, every corner a potential trap. Yet the girl's confidence had grown. She had seen her own strength and now trusted herself and the human more than ever. As they ran, the human realized something important. This girl, once treated as nothing, was now a symbol of courage. Her survival, her power, and her intelligence could change how others saw humans, and perhaps even the galaxy itself. The glow from her hands faded completely as they reached a quiet alley at the edge of the market. They paused, catching their breath. Around them, the city continued to hum with life. Unaware of the quiet battle that had just taken place, the human looked at her. "You are not alone," he said softly. She smiled faintly, the first real smile he had seen in days. "Not alone," she repeated. Together they disappeared into the shadows, moving toward a hidden path that might finally lead them to freedom. But the human knew the greatest challenges were still ahead. The girl's power was extraordinary, but controlling it, protecting her, and surviving the bounty hunters would test them both in ways they had not yet imagined. The human and the alien girl emerged from the shadows into the open market street. The bright lights and the loud noise were almost overwhelming after the quiet darkness of the tunnels. But danger was not far behind. The girl's former owners, tall and cruel aliens, were waiting, their faces twisted in anger. Their guards flanked them, weapons drawn. The girl froze for a moment, her golden eyes widening. This was the moment she had feared, but also the moment she had been preparing for. She had survived the chains, the tunnels, the bounty hunters, and now she would face the ones who had treated her like a waste product. The human stepped in front of her, his stance calm but firm. "You will not touch her," he said loudly, his voice carrying across the market street. The owners laughed, a cold, sharp sound that made the human tighten his fists. "You humans think you can interfere in our business?" One of the owners sneered. "This child belongs to us. She is our property." The girl looked at him, her hands trembling slightly, but then she raised them. A faint glow surrounded her fingers. She did not speak at first. She let her presence, her power, and her courage speak. The floating objects around her trembled and hovered, forming a protective barrier. The crowd began to notice. Shoppers and traders paused, murmuring to each other. They had never seen a human protect an alien in such a direct way. And they had never seen an alien girl, once treated as nothing, stand up with such courage and power. "Back off!" the human shouted. "She is not your property. She is a living being, and we will not let you harm her." The owners' faces twisted in anger. "You dare defy us?" One growled. He raised his weapon, pointing it at the girl. But before he could strike, she whispered a word in her alien language. The air shimmered, and the objects around her spun faster, creating a barrier that blocked the weapon. The crowd gasped. The girl stepped forward, her golden eyes glowing brighter. She spoke in broken common words, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I am not yours. I am free." Her voice carried courage, strength, and a refusal to be treated as a waste product. The human watched, proud but tense. He knew the owners could retaliate at any moment. But the crowd had begun to shift. Witnessing the human stand for the girl, seeing her bravery, and realizing the cruelty of the owners, people started to move closer, surrounding the scene. They whispered, stared, and some even shouted against the owners. The owners hesitated, surprised by the crowd's reaction. They had expected fear, submission, and silence. Instead, they faced defiance, courage, and growing support. The girl's power was strong, but her bravery and the human's protection inspired others as well. The human whispered to her, "You are doing well. Stay strong." She nodded, her hands still glowing faintly. The owners, realizing they had lost control, took a step back. Their guards shifted nervously. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, filled with judgment and outrage. "Enough!" one of the owners shouted. But the words had lost power. The girl's defiance and courage, backed by the human, had changed the balance. The owner's dominance was slipping, and there was little they could do without drawing more attention. The girl glanced at the human, then at the crowd. "Go," she whispered. Together, they moved toward the quieter streets, leaving the shocked owners behind. The human helped her navigate the alleys, ensuring their escape was safe. As they disappeared into the shadows, the girl looked back once. Her golden eyes burned with a quiet promise. She would never be treated as a waste product again. And the human knew this was more than survival, it was victory. Courage, intelligence, and the human willingness to protect had turned the tide. The market returned to its usual chaos, but whispers remained. Traders and shoppers would talk for days about the human, who stood for what was right, and the alien girl who had defied her cruel owners. In this dark, crowded place, a light of hope and HFY courage had shined brightly. The girl's chains were gone, her fear diminished, and her respect for the human absolute. Together they had confronted darkness and cruelty and survived. But even as they moved deeper into the alleys, both knew that freedom was only the beginning. New challenges awaited. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of unknown threats. Yet, for now, they had won this battle. The human glanced at the girl. "We're not done yet," he said softly. She smiled faintly, a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. "But we are free," she replied. And for the first time, both of them truly believed it. The streets beyond the market were quiet now. The chaos and danger of the bustling marketplace faded behind them, replaced by narrow alleys and soft shadows. The human walked beside the alien girl, careful to keep her close, but allowing her to move freely now that her chains were gone. She touched her wrists, feeling the emptiness where the chains had been. Her golden eyes sparkled not with fear, but with hope. For the first time, she felt truly free. She looked at the human who had risked so much to protect her. A small smile appeared on her face, faint but genuine. "Free," she whispered. Her voice carried relief, wonder, and gratitude all at once. The human nodded. "Yes, free. And we will stay free." He paused, glancing around the quiet alleys. The city beyond the market was dangerous, yes, but with courage, trust, and a little luck, they could navigate it. And together, they were stronger than any danger. The girl took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the crisp night air. She had survived the cruelty of her former owners, the dangers of the market, and even the pursuit of ruthless bounty hunters. She had discovered her own strength and power. And now she realized something: more humans could be allies, protectors, and friends. Not all beings were cruel. Not all worlds were heartless. The human looked at her golden eyes. "You were never just a waste product," he said firmly. "You're intelligent, brave, and strong. And now, you're free to be yourself." The girl smiled, a little shyly. "Thank you," she whispered. She felt a warmth in her chest she had never known before, a feeling that came from trust, friendship, and safety. They continued walking, moving toward the outskirts of the city. The market was behind them, but its lessons lingered. The girl had learned that courage and cleverness could overcome cruelty. The human had learned that small acts of kindness could inspire hope and strength in even the